why is store-bought, certified gluten-free food so stinking expensive? Take cereal, for example. With the exception of Cheerios that has pesticides in the actual cereal now and Chex that my kids are just tired of, most certified gluten-free cereals are like $7 a box for this really small box that does not last for kids very long, like a day, day and a half, maybe, right? And that's just not very cost efficient. So to help offset the cost, I'm going to show you guys how to make granola. But first, a little bit of backstory for those of you just joining us. My name is Melissa, and 2 of my 4 children were diagnosed with celiac disease in the first half of 2023. And it's been kind of a roller coaster for the process of gluten-freeing our kitchen and learning new staples for our family because we had to redo our whole menu. This channel is dedicated to sharing tips and recipes that I have really valued in this process, that I found really helpful, and to take you guys along the journey as I experiment with new recipes. So if you have been here before, welcome back. And if you are new here and you need or want to learn more to help you or a loved one on this gluten-free life journey, then subscribe. And if you end up liking this recipe, then leave a like. And if it's not your cup of tea, then leave a comment and let me know what kind of recipes you're interested in me doing in the future. So granola. One of the things that I really love about this is how much I end up making. So you do 3 sheet pans worth, but it ends up making like 2.5 boxes worth of cereal. But this is more filling cereal granola than you're gonna get if you're buying the store-bought kind. But you can use it with a cereal in the morning with milk. You can use it with yogurt. You can use it with fruit. There's a lot of different possibilities, and it's really yummy. And it ends up giving you a little more bang for your buck when it comes to prices. So I'm really excited. So let's get going. The first thing you're going to want to do is put a medium-sized mixing bowl on top of your kitchen scale and zero it out. And then you're going to want to pour in 200 grams of hot water. It doesn't need to be boiling, just regular hot tap water will work. Next, you're going to want to add 630 grams of maple sugar or raw coconut sugar. Here I'm using coconut palm sugar, and I ended up running out. The bag was not enough, but that's okay. I ended up just grabbing some brown sugar that I had on hand and filling in the gaps with that, so that I ended up with 630 grams of granulated or powdered sugar to mix into my water. Now, before you add anything else in, you're going to want to mix that around until your sugar starts dissolving. It's kind of a thick, syrupy substance at this level. It's not super, super thin, but you're going to want to give it a good mix so that your sugar starts to dissolve. Next, we are going to zero our scale again, and we're going to add 340 grams of maple syrup or honey or liquid allulose. In this case, I'm using honey, and if you choose to use honey, I would recommend that you try to go local as much as you can for honey. Next, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. When you choose your vanilla, it's important to make sure that the vanilla is gluten-free. There are some that are processed on plants that there's cross-contamination issues, so be careful. This kind that I get from H-E-B is certified gluten-free, and it says so on the bottle, which makes things easy. Next, you're going to give this a good mix so that it's nice and incorporated. You can use a whisk, you can use a spoon, you can use a spatula, it really doesn't matter. You just want it all blended in together. And then you're going to set this to the side. Then you're going to want to grab a nice big mixing bowl because you're going to have a lot of stuff and anything. Just grab a really big one. Zero out your scale, and then we're going to add 1,200 grams of old-fashioned oats. Make sure they're certified gluten-free. The Bob's Red Mill ones are nice for this. I ended up needing more than 1 bag's worth, and thankfully I already have some in my container. It's the same stuff, I just had it in a separate container. And so I went ahead and added the extra. I'm sorry you can't see the scale in this part, the bowl's a little too big, but you're gonna have to trust me, it's 1,200 grams. Next, you're going to need to decide what kind of nuts you want to add. You're going to add 2 cups of whatever type of raw nuts you choose. In this case, I went with walnuts. And they can be chopped, they can be sliced, they can be whatever size you want. I personally don't love trying to cut them because they kind of splatter everywhere, as you see. So my favorite way to break up nuts is just to stick them all in a plastic bag and crush them by hand. Sometimes I'll toss the knife in there to make it a firmer surface. And it takes a little bit of time, but I feel like I get a better size for what I want if I break them that way. Something to be careful of with nuts is sometimes they can be processed on plants that there's cross-contamination with gluten, and so I would make sure that you clarify that you're using nuts that are gluten-free. These Fisher ones say gluten-free on the front of the bag, which makes it nice and easy, but there are some other walnuts that are not gluten-free that we have found out by getting accidentally. So just be extra careful when you're selecting your nuts if your gluten allergy is extremely sensitive. You're going to do 2 cups right in the bowl with all the rolled oats. Next, you are going to give the nuts and the oats a good toss just to kind of try and mix them together a little bit so there's not, a bunch of nuts in one area and none in the other. And then you're going to take and you pour your wet ingredients over your dry ingredients. You can do this without gloves or with gloves, depending on if you mind getting your hands sticky. And you're going to take, scrape the bowl clean and get as much as you can in there. And then by hand, you're going to mix around your wet ingredients on top of your dry ingredients and try to get all of them as evenly coated as possible. Then you can remove your gloves or wash your hands, depending on what you ended up using. But you're going to want to put parchment paper on 3 sheet pans. I would try to use the biggest sheet pans you want, that you have. If you're trying for a crispier granola, and you're going to try and spread it so that you have a nice, even, thin layer on each of the pans. The thicker layer you have, the more chewy your granola is going to be. The thinner the layer you have, the more crunchy it's going to be. And so, just to help it bake all the way, you want to be as thin as possible. I only have 1 big one, and then I have 2 smaller ones, and so I used what I had, and it ended up working fine. If I had 3 of the bigger ones, then I would have done that, and it would have been a little thinner, and then it might end up being a little crunchier of a granola. But I ended up okay with what mine turned out like. After it's fully spread out, I like sprinkling with a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg. Again, it's nice to check to make sure your seasonings are gluten-free if you have celiac disease. Some are, some aren't. These single ingredient seasoning canisters from HEB are gluten-free. They even label it really well. I appreciate that about HEB, is they're really good at labeling their gluten-free products. And then you're going to bake in a preheated oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 minutes until it's dried out and started to brown. And then you're going to stir them around a little bit and get the top to the bottom to the top as best you can. And then you're going to put that back in the oven and bake it for an additional 10 to 15 minutes, depending on your oven. And then that pan can come out and cool. You'll put the other pans in and do the exact same thing. until they're all baked. After all of your pans are done, you want to leave the granola on the pans to cool completely before you transfer it to an airtight container. If you try to transfer it too early, then it's going to be kind of chewy and soft. And if you leave it for a while, then it'll start getting crunchy. And you'll notice I've got this spoon here. If I try to stir it, it's not going to stir. It's, stuck together kind of like peanut brittle. And so I just pick up the corners and break it, and then I will just break it little bit by little bit into my airtight containers as best I can. I'll do some bigger pieces, some little pieces. You end up kind of breaking them up a little bit smaller as you're pouring them out anyway. And after I have broken up as much as I can, and there's just little crumbs on the parchment paper, I'll actually just pick the whole parchment paper up and use it as a funnel and pour the rest into the container too, so there's not any waste. It works really well. That is how you make granola. It takes a little bit of time to put each pan in the oven and bake it and then take it out, and put the next pan in the oven and bake it and take it out. And that takes a little bit of time, but because you're doing kind of a bulk order of it, but then it's done. This will keep at room temp in an airtight container for up to a month, which is fantastic. And my kids will eat it up by then, and then I can make another batch and it'll be fine. You can use other types of nuts. You can try things like sesame seeds or sunflower seeds. You can try dried fruit in there as well. After you're done making it, just put little dried fruits in there. There's endless possibilities. Again, I modified the recipe just a little bit for our taste, but I'll put the original recipe in the description box. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope that this was helpful. Leave a comment if you want me to try something else later, or if you have any additional tips for this one to kind of help the community. And leave a like if you ended up liking this, so that I can kind of better track what recipes are working for people and what aren't. So have a wonderful day. Bye.